Big Toe Productions. I'm Brendan.
I'm Dom.
I'm Lucia.
And I'm Ellie.
Our main idea is a documentary on a social group. We decided to go with teen spiritualists. We're going to call them ghosters. You know, you've got your names like your emos, your chavs. So we thought we'd go with this. The idea came from a news story we saw about teen werewolves in America. And these kids walk around with bits of fur in the back of their trousers and they look ridiculous. So we thought, what if you kind of made that fictional? You could really exploit it, put it into documentary form. And that's where we got this idea from. We've got plenty of ideas for our scenes. We've looked at getting all the reactions from different people. But obviously, because it's fiction, we can exploit their reactions, exaggerate them, kind of manipulate them to give a viewpoint on our characters. So our main characters, we've got our social group. That's a hooded monk, but that's not our social group. That's an idea. But it would be similar, kind of these kids going around college, normal people with big hoods up, looking ridiculous, really out of place. We'd sort of have 4 or 5 maybe, and one speaker that would cut down on actors. Then, for one of our scenes, we were going to interview the parents of this main speaker. In this news story, the parents were interviewed, and they just hated, they really resented the kid. They were grimacing at everything that was being said. And we thought that could just really be used to a good comedic effect in our mockumentary.
Yeah, we're also going to have the head teacher who'd be kind of oblivious to what the kids were doing, and they would just seem like nothing was different. And just sort of, he'd just think that it's just sort of a phase more than anything. We're thinking of sort of like a jock character who sort of like one of the leader kids would talk to like their dead family member and probably fade and have him like with a black eye or something. And then obviously the presenter would be quite middle-aged, quite refined. You can't really relate to this new social group, so they'll be quite serious, but yeah, again, comedic. Yeah. Also having sort of, we might use college, like one of the rooms to show sort of like a club. Boromont on the way to Glastonbury is sort of quite broken down, as well as Greendown Fort with quite sort of spooky atmosphere. And sort of the sofa to do the parent talk sort of interview. They're quite easy and cheap to get to as well.
We've chosen to do a mockumentary genre as our presenter is going to be this sort of rational, authoritative viewpoint, so that adds a sense of realism to our story. The mockumentary format often resembles a real documentary, and it can challenge the ideals that an audience has on a factual text, as this is going to be sort of mocking it. The parts are often improvised and add a sense of truth to the subjects and characters. However, we'll be scripting and keeping the camera rolling while actors are unaware to capture the humorous and natural shots as we can. Make sure it's light-hearted, but with a sense of realism.
As a backup plan, if we can't use Boromont, we're going to use Glastonbury Tor instead, as well as Greendown. We also have so many scenes in mind that if some don't work out as well as we hoped, we can use others' scenes in their place. And for costs, our budget is going to be aimed at around £50. This we'll be able to provide lunch and travel for the actors. Props, which will include a crucifix and crystal ball, will be easy to get hold of. As for the costumes, me and Ellie are willing to make the hooded robes as the cheapest we can buy them for is around £15 to £20, whereas we can buy cheap material and will be easy to make.
Feel free to ask any questions, but we've got a few for you to start off with. We're not entirely sure on our name for the piece, so we've got Ghosters to start off with, but I was just wondering whether you could think of a name.
I think Ghosters is good, because it's like Brendan said, you've got hipsters, you've got emos, and it sort of fits in with those categories. So I think I don't see why you'd have to change it. I think it's cool.
Would you actually find it entertaining?
I don't know why I put my hand up. I think if you focused on the parents, the parents' reaction a lot more, I think that could be really, really funny, because obviously most parents are proud of their kids, but it's kind of quite nice to see it kind of forced. I think that would be quite funny, or it might be an awful person, I'm not really sure.
And do you think we could pull it off without making it more like a college film, so it looks really trashy?
I think that you can, like, as long as you know the locations that you use make it quite clear.
Yeah.
So what you're saying about if you are going to use the college, for example, as your location, being careful where you film in college.
Yeah, so
Trying
it's
to
not
make it look
recognised.
professional, so that it looks like a college that you see in a mainstream documentary, I suppose, that we'd see on TV, rather than, oh, it's just Bridgewater College and, you know, you've got your friends walking past in the background.
Yeah, that's fair.
Would it be done in the style, in the sense that it's known to be a fake documentary, like a mockumentary? Or would it be in the style of it's trying to look as realistic as possible, like
That's what it
like
would be,
Spinal
yeah.
Tap sort of thing?
And then it would just be so over the top. It would come across as serious. The presenter would too, but you just know in your heart it's just too ridiculous to be real.
What's your target audience?
Target audience is probably going to be teenagers, I'd say, sort of, because they can
YouTube
relate to all the groups, they know the
watchers
most
and-
about them. But also there's a lot of, I'd imagine, a lot of adults and people outside of those groups that would look in and just think it's ridiculous that there's someone like this.
General feedback then, guys?
I think it would be quite funny because it's like, you know how like adults always go, oh, I can't keep up with the trends these days. Like I think that'd be quite funny if like as when adults watch it. I think that would relate to them that kind of way. Like,
But I think it runs the risk of being too much of a comedy, almost. It could be too funny, in a way, because the concept is humorous. But if it's too funny, then it will sort of detract from the documentary style, I think.
I think that's an important point, actually. You've got to, there's got to be kind of serious aspects to it, you know. Whether that's the kind of isolation of the social group or the traumas that teenagers go through when trying to, you know, establish an identity or whatever, that's kind of got to run alongside the fact that
Well, the presenter could do that, couldn't
Yeah.
they? They could.
yeah,
Set up a name for the documentary side of it, yeah.
yeah, exactly. And you also remember what we said right at the beginning. You don't want to be too mocking, because whatever our beliefs, you can be pretty guaranteed that there are some people out there that might believe in whatever, you know.
So is that too much of a touchy subject to use?
No, I don't think it's
against
touchy
leaders?
at all. I just think that you even in a mockumentary, you've got to be aware that if you were playing it for real, you wouldn't be mocking anything.
Yeah, I mean, like Spinal Tap isn't taking the piss out of them.
No,
But
exactly.
It's funny because that is kind of how it actually is.
Yeah,
But, I mean, you're not, you know, the aim isn't, well, at least in Spinal Tap, the aim isn't for them to make fun of Spinal Tap. And, you know, in the end, people actually did believe it, and, you know, they actually became a band and things. So, if you're lucky, they might actually become a social group.
Fingers crossed.
James?
No, I think the locations are great. Yeah, that's a plus. Yeah, I like the locations. I think they all work. College, obviously, yeah, like what's already been said. Just make sure, just be careful where you film. However, the locations outside college are great, yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I think it will actually work. I quite like the idea. As James said, the locations are pretty good, but I'm not sure about the inside college one. But yeah.
I think you're being quite tight on the budget as well if you're going to use one of the locations. Especially if you're going to use costume, obviously petrol, prices for food for the actors and the crew. So I think 50
It's a bit of an optimistic budget, but I think we're all willing to go a bit over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just one thing, did you say you have like a jock character?
We're going to have sort of one of these kids. They're really kind of oblivious that everyone hates them, so we could go up to a sort of a jock character or a bully who's
Okay.
sort of lost a family member.
That's like, I was thinking like if it's like an American style jock, then you probably couldn't have that in Bridgewater College.
And are you going to script all of your characters?
Yeah, we did have an idea for a scene where we could dress up our person in their robe, take them out around Bridgewater or another place, and get real reactions. But that could be one of our backups. As I said, we got so many scenes that we could Our problem is narrowing them down, not making it last 5 minutes.
I think your script's got to be really quite clever, hasn't it? So you'll need to spend quite a lot of time on the script just to make sure that it sounds like a documentary and it doesn't sound amateurish. Because you would assume that if it's a documentary, it was going to be made by a professional group of people, wouldn't you? Caillou?
I think it'll work really well. I think comedy's quite a hard genre to pull off, but I think from what I've heard, it does sound like it will work.